Hey everybody, this is Matt and we're at Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for tuning in to our second and I'm guessing final installment in our building a guitar neck out of a 2x4 series. So we've done two videos on this so far. One was the pre-recorded video that I released last week where I took a bunch of 2x4s and made a couple of necks. The other one was a live stream where I answered a bunch of questions and thanked people for their comments the following day, because that video kind of exploded and that was a cool thing. So thank you guys for watching that, and I hope that you get something out of this video too. So I have the neck in my hands here that you might remember from the previous video. Now, since then, I've done a couple of things again to kind of practice, and I didn't need to make a video of me doing the things. I'll talk about them a little bit, but the whole idea with this neck is that it gives you a medium for practicing on, and whether or not it's a good idea, we don't know. But let's jump in and kind of talk about some of this stuff. So one of the things that I did was I routed a truss rod slot. I angled the headstock with my 7-degree angle, and I drilled holes for the tuners. Again, this is all stuff that I think has a lot of benefits if you wanted to, say, practice routing a truss rod slot and practice getting an angle on your headstock and, again, practice drilling holes. So, but I didn't film that because we've already done videos on that, so we don't need to do that. You can find them; they're still up there. You can just go find them. And if you don't want to watch me doing it, other people have done it too. The next thing that I thought we would do is we would glue our fretboard on. And I thought this would actually be a fun thing to do because I think I've done a video on this before, but I'm not sure I have. I know I've done a video in the past where I've showed you attaching the fretboard that's already been slotted, but I'm going to do this guy here basically just like this, and then I'm going to show you guys what we do after that. Let's talk a little bit about that real quick. We're going to be using this this is some kind of rosewood. It's a cheap some kind of rosewood, but it's some kind of rosewood that we just had laying around the shop. And we're going to glue this guy on like this. Then we're going to trim it to size, and we're going to slot it for frets to give us some practice, slotting for frets. And you know what? We might as well even bind it because it's the dumbest thing to do. Because again, this is a plywood neck, it doesn't need binding. But the whole point of this is to practice stuff that maybe you don't want to do to the real neck, okay? And that's something that has come up numerous times in the comment section. Why don't you add carbon fiber rods, or why don't you add stiffening, or why don't you add a big chunk of maple down the middle, or wrap it with carbon fiber? Yeah, why don't you? You know what you could do is you could just start with the good piece of neck making material, which is what I recommend. So I've said this numerous times. This is not what I recommend for your actual guitar, okay? We're doing this to test if it's worth it to even practice on, and the jury's still out, okay? But I'm not recommending that you use 2x4s to make guitars with, all right? Please don't hear that. So anyway, but let's finish it up and let's see what it looks like. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to glue this fretboard on. All right, so I think I have all my stuff here. Remember, since we're practicing, why don't we practice doing it the right way, yeah? So I like to put a little piece of tape on my, over my truss rod, okay? And I also like to open this hole back here so that some glue can get down in there. I also like to put a piece of tape right here, and that will be an area that I don't want glue to get, but I am going to overhang the fretboard, so when I go to cut the nut, area, the 0 fret, if you will, that piece won't have to be unglued. Okay, so we'll just take some glue. I like to mash some into that hole there. Put some on. Let me get my braider. I need a little more glue. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now I'll pull this tape. You want to remember to pull the tape. And again, since we're practicing, we might as well practice the whole thing, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that you make your guitars exactly the way I do. So if this does or does not meet with your approval, I totally get it. Let me make sure we're in the camera here. Put the squeeze on it. Okay, let's let this sit for a little bit and we'll come back and we'll do some more work on the neck here. But as you can see, yeah, there's really not a whole lot to this. And because there's no fret slots yet, it's really, you can just kind of slap the board on there and it's really no big shake. Okay, got my truss rod in. Everything's looking good. After this, after the glue dries, we'll trim it to size. We'll cut some fret slots, and like I said, we might even do a binding channel, because why not? This whole thing is ridiculous anyway. Might as well hedge our bets on the ridiculousness, right? All right, it's been a couple 3 hours, and as you guys can see here, all my squeeze out is dry. My fretboard is glued to my 2x4 neck. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna trim the excess without hitting the 2x4 on the bandsaw, and then we're going to run it over a flush trim bit and get it exactly the same so that it's exactly even with the board. So this is a great point to talk to you guys a little bit more about, since this is a practice neck, that step that I just did there, that's something that I have seen guys come in here and do at my workshops, and they try to get too close, okay? So they try to trim it so close to the neck, which is good, but they accidentally nick the neck, which is bad. So this is a great, I guess you could call this like a teachable moment. That's a place that I think that the 2x4 neck kind of practice deal makes a lot of sense, okay? So now we're gonna run over to the shaper and we're gonna trim this and get it flush. I gotta tell you, I really like that new bit on the shaper, and I'm gonna try to find where I got it so that you guys can get one for your router at home. I don't know if you could see it, but I did have a little tear out though, and I think it was when I was coming around it was the very last little bit that I hit on the shaper, and I guess something just kind of nicked that, or that was an area that was about to bust off anyway. So remember when I said in the last video that I was thinking this went a little better than I thought it was gonna? I don't know, something's happening. Something is definitely changing, and there's now, this neck is getting really, really fragile. It's not something that is insurmountable, okay? One, and I gotta keep coming back to this, I don't care if this actually becomes a neck that is awesome, okay? Two, it's not a big deal to put some filler wood putty in there and call that good, okay? It might not affect anything, but what I can guarantee you is that this guitar isn't going to sound any different if this little corner of the headstock is made out of plastic wood, okay? I think even Paul Reed Smith would agree with me that this ain't tone wood and that ain't gonna matter. Okay, gang, it's time to do some of the fun neck stuff. My buddy over at Talon Guitar Works was in the comment section of one of the last couple of videos, and he was saying, yeah, you know, the cool thing about using a pine neck would be to be able to practice making a neck and also practice some of the order of things. So I'm going to add to that. Let's practice some stuff that maybe you suck at. Okay, now what I mean by that is we've got our neck blank here, and it's ready to put fret slots in. It's ready to fret. It's ready to do the radius. It's ready to shape and all that stuff. But I thought since this is supposed to be a practice neck, let's practice some binding. And because everybody who I know who doesn't like Gibson binding, so let's practice Gibson binding. This will give us an opportunity to do that. So back to what Talon Guitars was talking about was, let's do it in the right order. So because the next thing that we could do is put fret slots in here, I'm gonna actually jump ahead one. I'm gonna put my binding slot in here, because it is possible, once you have fret slots already cut, to have 44, or in this case, we're gonna do 24 frets, 48 little areas where you can encourage tear out when you put the binding slot route in. So I'm gonna do the binding route first, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put the fret slots in. If you do your necks the same way I do mine, I think this will save you guys a lot of heartache in the future. So, well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do, and then I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna drag the camera around because it's been a long day and I'm kind of winding down. I'm gonna cut the binding slot, I'm gonna put the fret slots in, and I'm gonna radius the neck. Then I can put my frets in, put my binding in, and trim all the binding back, and then start shaping the neck, because I got a boatload of necks to shape, okay? So first things first, let's do the binding route, binding channel. We're gonna use the 60 thousandths cutter, and that's gonna be good. So you can see my binding channel is done now. It looks really good. I didn't go all the way around the back here because all this is going to get trimmed away for the neck pickup on this guitar. All right, the next thing we're going to do is fret slots. So I got my handy dandy StewMac 24 3/4 inch fret slotting template attached to the back of my neck. And I used some pins to do that. You can actually see some holes that I drilled through the template and into the neck itself. If you want to know how we do this, you can sign up for one of our workshops. All right, 24 cute little fret slots. And now we're gonna just pop this guy off. because that's our 0 fret. And of course we'll clean this up here, but there you go. Practicing making a neck. This is kind of fun. Okay, remember just a few minutes ago when I said the next thing we're gonna do is put the radius on here? No, we're not gonna put the radius on. I kind of forgot myself and got a little bit out of order, so good thing I'm practicing. The next thing that we have to do is we have to modify the heel of our neck to fit into our body because it's way too tall now. So I have some marks here where my heel actually ends and where I want to go to. And because my heel on the neck pocket on my body's flat, and because I'm using a Tune-O-Matic bridge, I have to angle this. So I'm going to go over to my beloved pin router with my sign plate and put my angle on. Now, I realize not everybody has a beloved pin router or a sign plate or is even going to use an angled neck. But on this one, I'm gonna. I apologize in advance for using tools that you don't have. But again, I'm not gonna change everything that I do so that I'll use exactly what you have, because one, I don't know what you have, and two, this is the way I know how to do it. So if you're kind of bummed out that I'm using tools you may not have, just fast forward to the part where you want to see or watch and hang out and have a good time. I don't care. It'll be fun, right? Okay. If nothing else, maybe you get some ideas about you know, like how you could do it at your home shop. All right. So again, I'm not going to change everything about the way I do stuff for you guys. I'm not expecting you to change everything that you do just for me. All right. We're cool. Don't sweat it. Check it out. Okay, in the 11th hour, I decided to use P90 pickups instead of humbuckers. But I also want to talk about some of the other cuts that I made. The first cut that I made with my 1/2" cutter was with an 1/8" pin. And I only went down to the end of my fretboard. That's going to be the cut that gives me my binding channel on the back of the fretboard. Then with a 1/4" pin, I went down to the top of the face of the guitar. That's going to give me 1/8 of an inch of distance between my pickup and my neck. Then with the 1/2" pin, I went all the way down to 5/8 of an inch so I could have room for my my P90s. I decided to go with P90s, one, because I think they're cool, and two, because they're generally speaking a little less expensive than humbuckers. I also want to talk to you guys about one other thing that I did, and that's how I got my neck to stay in my neck pocket. I used an old school trick called a spot glue, where I put a spot of glue in my neck pocket and then clamped it. Then you can just pop it off and you're ready to go. No harm, no foul. So it's way better than double stick tape. Okay, I'm gonna cut my other P90 in the body because I'm here and that's the last thing I'm going to do today. Okay, now it's time to put the radius on the fretboard. Good thing I got that order correct. Speaking of things that if you want to get a bunch of practice in on a neck that you don't really care about, putting the radius on the fretboard is one of the trickier things to do, especially if you're using a block like this with sandpaper. It's so tricky, in fact, that I stopped doing it. I don't know, I probably could do it again, but I've since purchased a tool to make my life way easier. And it's my swinging radius jig right here. So that's what we're going to use to put the 12-inch radius on this neck. If you don't have a swinging radius jig, well, I'm not saying you can't do it with this, but I am saying that getting some practice wouldn't be a bad idea. What I can tell you is the more perfect your radius on your fretboard is, the more perfect everything else is going to be after that. Fretting is going to be way easier. Leveling and dressing is going to be virtually non-existent if you do everything right. If you start with kind of a dorked up fretboard though, you're going to be fighting it the rest of the way. So since we're practicing stuff, I urge you to practice this until you get it right. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it 100 billion times and I'm not going to do it ever again if I have anything to say about it. All right, let me show you how this dude works. Okay, our fretboard is radiused and it looks pretty good. I got some frets cut to press into here because we're gonna press our frets in and then we're gonna bind it so we can put those little nubs on like at Gibson. And the more of the stuff I do to this neck, the more absurd it gets. I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know, all the work that I am putting into this would be the exact same work so far that I'm doing to a good piece of lumber. Remember, this is just some 2x4s glued up. It's neat, but would it be neater if it was actual wood? Probably. There's no probably about it. It definitely would. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be a 2x4 guitar. Some of you guys have been like, what if it sounds great? What if it works? So it's not like we're saving a ton of money by using Douglas fir in this case. I think if I went down to the hardwood store here locally, there's 2 of them in my neighborhood, I could probably get poplar or I don't know, something cheap, and it would be way more stable. And I'd have something that would be, well, maybe not poplar, but if I went with just mahogany, I'd spend a little bit more. Like I said, you go to Stuart McDonald and buy this neck blank and a body blank or something and do this, and you'll have a lot less machine time. But even if you like, well, I got a bunch of tools, I want to machine out all my own stuff. Yeah, you could. But man, this 2x4 thing is really, really a handicap, okay? That I would, if this is your first guitar and you're wondering like, well, what if? Man, I would not use 2x4s. I cannot stress that enough. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even use it for the body. And the body looks pretty good. Okay, rant off. I'm going to press these frets in, and then again, I'm going to get all the practice of pressing in frets and gluing in frets. If you don't glue your frets in, I get it, but I want to tell you something. There's no penalty for gluing in frets. If you hammer them in or something like that, I guess you might want practice with that. Again, I don't hammer in frets. I have a fret press, so I'm going to press them in. I have glue, so I'm going to glue them in. For that, I'm going to use StuMax number 20 super glue. Let's hurry up and get this, because I know what you guys are wanting to get to. You want to get to the neck part, the shaping part. And this is just an absolutely ridiculous process to get to the neck shaping part. I apologize, dear viewer. Okay, let me press these in. We'll get them ground off. We'll get some binding glued on, and then maybe later today we'll have time to start shaping the neck. Well, it's been a long day in the shop today. I got a bunch of other stuff done, and I also got my my Douglas fir 2x4 neck, let's see, fretted I got it bound, and I got the side dots in, and I'm gonna come over here. Look at that. I even did those cute little Gibson binding nubs, because this neck is supposed to be something that everybody can like kind of practice on. So everybody that I know who tries this, including myself, needs more practice doing it. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut a bunch of material out that doesn't look like a neck, and then maybe tomorrow morning I'll go ahead and start shaping this. So a couple of things have come up recently that you know, a lot of people have been like, oh, you should add steel bars to it or graphite reinforcement or something. But I thought, you know, no, let's just make this how we would make a regular neck. Then Dylan said, hey, I'm going to provide the pickups for this build. Cool. Well, now it's kind of got to be a real guitar. It can't just be a decoration. Then I was talking to Steve at Maximum Guitar Works, and he said, you know what would be really funny is if you brought it by the shop and we plecked it. Actually, that's not how the conversation went. I told Steve that I was going to bring this by and have him pleck it, and he said, a 2x4 neck, what? And then he thought that'd be really funny. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put this together so that it might actually work. But I'm not going to make the neck ridiculously huge. I'm going to make it kind of how I make all my other necks, maybe a little bigger than I normally do. But I haven't decided yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a bunch of this material away, and then we'll get started shaping it. But I will probably, at the very least, stabilize all these knots and cracks and stuff with CA glue before I actually start shaping. So in the next little segment, it's probably going to be me doing some shaping, and I've got a bunch of necks to shape. This one is made out of 2x4s. All the other ones are made out of Honduran mahogany and good stuff like that. So who knows what we'll find out after this, but it should be a heck of a lot of fun, right? All right, we'll see you in a moment. Okay, gang, it's an all new day, and it's time to get down to the thing that you've probably been waiting for this entire video and all of the other videos we've made about, excuse me, the 2x4 neck. Before we do this, let's recap. We started this project thinking this might be something good to do as a practice neck. I didn't think it was going to be. I still don't think it is, but we're going to take it to completion. And we're going to do it exactly like we do a regular neck. In fact, I've got 3 of our American Icon necks that I'm shaping today, and they're mahogany and rosewood and binding and inlay. This one doesn't have any inlay, but essentially it's the same thing. So we're going to shape this neck, and then we're going to have a look at it and see. Now, it is first thing in the morning. I haven't done anything else today, but what I did last night before I left for the day was I'm not going to say I stabilized these knots, but I did load them with CA glue, and that might help a little bit. I don't expect that that'll be the last time I have to do that. In fact, I'll probably have to do that a lot if this ever turns into a guitar. I'm not going to make this neck ridiculously oversized so that it can be a guitar, or I can hedge my bets on this being a guitar. I'm going to make this about the same as I make a regular neck, because again, this is a practice neck, not trying to make a guitar out of a 2x4, even though that's what we're doing. So I'm going to use my my deadhead sander, and we're going to get started on these. We're going to work on these throughout the whole day, and hopefully by the end of the day this will look like a neck, and who knows, maybe we can even get it glued into the body. Because there's plans for this thing, even though that was never really my intention. Like I said, I may have said it, I can't remember. Dylan's going to be providing us with some pickups for this guitar, and Steve over at Maximum Guitar Works begrudgingly has agreed to pleck this neck for us. So that'd be funny. All right, let's get the neck shaped and see where we are, and show you a little bit of how we do that, okay? All right, now that the power tools have have been turned off for a little bit, we can kind of start to shape the rest of this by hand, namely the volute area and the heel area. So I'm going to do that exactly the same way I normally do necks, and that's using this rasp, and I'm going to attack it with some sandpaper. So a couple of things that I'm noticing so far is that this shapes in some ways easier and in some ways more difficult than actual like mahogany, say for the sake of conversation. Wood that's normally used for musical instrument construction. It's not quite as, it definitely, material removes easily, okay? And you kind of have to take your time, but it's not as easy as I would have thought, mostly because every time I use 2x4s for something, I use a chop saw to cut them. I don't use a sander. You know what I mean? So you've got patches of soft grain and patches of hard grain, just like you would on, like, say, ash or something. Which I don't make necks out of ash either. So yeah, so it's I don't know. It's amusing, but that might be about it. Here's the other thing. I'm starting to notice, like I said, after this has just been glued up as a guitar neck for a little while, I'm starting to notice some cracks and checks in the wood that weren't there before. And I think that that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So if you want to use inexpensive wood to practice, I can think of better woods to use than a piece of lumber from the 2x4 section at Home Depot, say. Okay. Now that is not to say that Home Depot doesn't have, stuff other than building materials that you could use to shape a neck, but I also don't think that it's so affordable that like I said, I think you'd be doing yourself a favor if you went to an actual wood supplier for musical instruments to source your materials for your guitar projects. Yeah, I think the little bit more that it might cost you, you will be rewarded with the result. You know what I mean? So, okay. That's not bad. See if we can clean up some of this other stuff here by hand. Now, I also realize that you guys are probably going to shape necks differently than I do based on the tools that you have versus the tools that I have. But again, that's not really the point of this video. The point of this video is, can we make can we use a 2x4 to practice, and two, what's it gonna yield when we're all done, But the techniques should be very similar whether you're using a very expensive multi-laminate neck blank that you get from somewhere, or a 2x4, and anything in between. You know what I mean? You constantly want to be feeling, making sure you don't have any bizarre facets. So like this grain line right here, this one is kind of keeping me from making something nice and smooth. Actually, all the grain lines are presenting themselves. And that is probably going to be one of the bummer parts about this, is it's never going to be how a a mahogany neck blank or a maple neck blank is, where it's just going to be, we're just going to have to live with that, I think. You know what I mean? We're going to be able to get as close as we can, but again, we're making a neck out of a 2x4, right? So how good does it really need to be? I think that one thing that like you might discover is, I really like doing this, and I'm going to do it more. Okay, cool. Man, I think if you started with poplar, you probably wouldn't be spending any more money, and you'd be starting with something that's good. All right, let me finish up this heel, and I'll see you guys in a moment. Okay, gang, let's wrap this video up. First, I want to tell you a couple things about how I made this video. You might have noticed that I have a different shirt on in almost every scene. That's because I filmed this video over the course of an entire week. So I'm not 100% sure like what I did or didn't say, so I think wrapping it up is probably a good idea. And I appreciate everyone who stuck around till the end, all right? So what are the takeaways from building a neck out of a 2x4? Well, one is, yeah, it can be done. Two is, I think it's probably excellent practice for making your first neck. And that's about where the pros run out, I think. Where the cons begin is, at the end of the day, even if you do everything perfectly right, you got a neck made out of a 2x4. Which is not, I don't know if it's bad or good, but it's a neck made out of a 2x4. I think that you have to do, I know, you have to do everything, whether you used the nicest piece of Honduran mahogany you could get or the cheapest piece of 2x4 you could get. And when you start to add up like what a nice piece of Honduran mahogany costs versus what a 2x4 costs, and the amount of effort that you have to put in to get something like this out of it, the cost of the wood is kind of minuscule compared to the amount of time and effort that it takes to do everything right. Okay, so yeah, it can be done, but I still don't think it's a good idea. Okay, and I get it's kind of funny that we made this kind of silly video making a 2x4 SG, but when all that silliness wears off, it's still just going to be a guitar made out of a 2x4, and I don't think it's going to be any cooler than an instrument made correctly out of musical instrument wood. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It'll be up to you guys to decide. Con number two, because we're working on a profile like this that's rounded, this feels faceted. And what it is it feels, what you can feel is the darker, little harder grain there. That stays more pronounced than the softer stuff in the middle. When you're working it, it kind of sands away easier. So you kind of get like this, little, it's not smooth like you want it to be. I also noticed that on the on these cutaways here, there's a handful of little patches where it's really tricky to get it to look right and to feel right. Now, I'm not suggesting that you couldn't sand this down to 220 or something, seal it up real good, and get it to feel nice and smooth. And as a matter of fact, that might be what I do on this, because I'm invested in this dumb guitar and I might as well finish it. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be a 2x4 guitar, right? So again, man, I think that if you use some kind of hardwood that's sold in by volume, that is to say, wood that's sold by board feet, not by linear feet, poplar would be great. Whatever you have that's cheap near you, don't use oak, because you're gonna fight that. Mahogany would be good, even if it's the African mahogany. Alder would be great. Maple would be great. Maple's not particularly expensive. Someone in one of the comments said maple's only like $5 a board foot near them. So yeah, spend some money and get something good, and you'll have when you put all this work into it, you'll have something good when it's done. Okay, not a 2x4 guitar. Okay, having said that, I will be finishing this guitar. I will be putting a finish on it. I am going to take it over to Steve's to have him plec the guitar. But I don't think I need to make a bunch of videos of me like spraying paint on this guitar. I don't want this to turn into like, you know, a video about making a 2x4 guitar. I kind of like the idea of, here it is, we're making a neck and we just so happen to be making it out of a 2x4. And I don't want you to think 2x4s are awesome to make necks out of, because they're not. I want you to think, can you practice with doing one? Yeah, you can. Now remember, I did every single thing on this neck that I would normally do to a neck that I made out of, say, mahogany. And I had to fight the temptation to put steel bars in it or reinforce it with something. It does have a truss rod because that's what I would normally use. I resisted the temptation to make this ridiculously fat, like Bill Kirchner's Telly with no truss rod that's made out of Douglas fir or whatever it's made out of. This is a little beefier than how I would normally make my necks, and mostly because I just kind of wanted to be done shaping this silly neck. But it's a little beefier. I don't think it's beefy enough to make, you know, if this is going to twist or bend or warp or whatever, I don't think that the amount that I made it heavier is going to make it do that less, if you know what I mean. The other thing is you got to fight this wood the whole time. So like there's a bunch of cracks in this that you might not be able to see that I loaded with CA glue. There's a bunch of knots that you can definitely see that I loaded with CA glue. So yeah, you can do it, but I still do not recommend it. I recommend using actual real live wood. So there you go, guys. I don't know if you got out of this video what I hope that you get out of this video, because frankly, I don't know what I hope you get out of this video. I guess I hope that if you get, you know, if you had a good time watching for the last however many videos worth of time, that you had fun, and maybe if you wanted to, you know, dip your toe into the guitar building world, that this might help you do that. I don't know. If you want to practice shaping necks out of 2x4, okay, the last thing I'm going to say, if you want to practice shaping necks on a 2x4, don't go through all the trouble of putting another fretboard on there that's like rosewood, and don't fret it, and don't bind it with the little nubs, and don't try to do, just make sure you got your however you decide to shape your neck, you know, whatever tools you decide to use, make sure you got your technique down before you go to spending it on, or spending time on more expensive wood than a 2x4, okay? But you're gonna be fighting the 2x4 the entire time. So this was a dumb thing to do, but I did it, and I hope you guys got some laughs out of it, because I thought it was funny at least. So anyway, gang, the other thing is, this is our very first installment of a video with where we're actively demonetizing the channel. And our active demonetization of the channel will last as long as you guys help support us on Patreon and YouTube. So we're not going to collect ads anymore, so you won't see any dumb ads on these videos, the live videos or the pre-recorded stuff, as long as you guys keep chipping in. The best way to help me out, two great ways. One, join us on YouTube. There's a little join button, and join us, even $1, okay? $1 a month. Join us on Patreon, even $1 a month. If you can do more, that'd be great. But we're not going to collect any money from our corporate overlords with ads for, like, you know, car insurance or whatever, however it comes into your feed. We're not going to do that anymore, as long as you guys pick up the pace, because we're going to lose some money on this, and it would really help me out if you guys kind of bought into having Texas Toast videos for no ads. If you guys decide, I don't really want to do that, we'll put the ads back on, but it's up to you, okay? And don't take that the wrong way. I'm like, this is what we're doing, and I'm doing this for you, and I still have fun making videos, and I hate dumb ads too. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you pay for YouTube, that doesn't help me at all. Okay, so basically, if everyone decides to just pay for YouTube, then I'll have to go back to putting ads in there, or I don't even know how it works. Honestly, I'll have to call Phil McKnight and see. Okay. All right, gang. Well, that's it. I will have some more updates on this guitar as it gets closer to completion. We'll probably do a video of it being plecked over at Steve's shop, and of course, we'll do a video when it's all strung up and ready to play. But we're gonna go with two P90s, independent volume and tone, jack, and a switch. We got holes drilled for tune-o-matic and stop tail. Obviously, we got the neck. It's ready to go here, and it sure is a kooky guitar. This will go very well with my plywood Les Paul. You know, maybe next year when we do the Great American Guitar Build Off, we'll say that you can do whatever you want, you can weigh whatever you want, and you can spend as much as you want, but the body and the neck have to be made out of stuff, dimensional lumber from Home Depot, not that maple and not the oak and not that other stuff. It's got to be from building materials at Home Depot. Okay? All right. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Tell me you had a good time. Tell me you thought I was a ridiculous nerd for doing it. Whatever you want, just let me know. Again, support my channel as best you can. Share this video as many places as you possibly can. That helps us grow the channel too. So until next time, this is Matt at Texas Toast, reminding you that if you're so smart, start your own YouTube channel. That's what I did. I also want to remind you, I don't normally build guitars out of 2x4s. I normally use mahogany. So don't think that somebody had a comment on one of Dylan's videos where like, those guys only use like plywood and plastic. No, we use big boy wood. And this was just a fun experiment. I realize that that's going to get lost on some people, and that's okay. You know what? They're not part of the brotherhood anyway, so no problem. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.